around later on, but don't have a separate camera from the laptop. So how you been, Ned?
Okay.
You're a little less busy these days since the election's over?
Well, frankly, it's different busy. So
It's still busy, but different, huh?
yeah. My mother had a fall back in December, and
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
she's doing okay, all things considered. But we're cleaning up her house and getting ready to sell. And well, you probably know how much that work that is.
Is she in some facility where she will stay?
Well, she's actually in my other bedroom right now.
Oh, okay.
So,
understand.
But it's just there's just so much to do with getting the house ready.
Yeah.
Hello, Lou.
Hello.
There's Al Maslin. I haven't seen him for a while.
Hello, Bob Leeds. How are you?
How you doing, Al?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah. I'm in good shape for the shape I'm in.
Yeah, me too. That's a whole other story.
Dennis, I like those paddles.
Yeah, I know. I just like it.
Yeah, that's I've been using that, and that's my go-to paddle now.
Which paddle do you have?
Did you get the clock running, Bob?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
The only disadvantage is that if the power goes off, so does the clock, and it's got to be reset. But I did figure out how to reset it and all. I don't use all its features, but it's kind of a neat thing. For $10, I'm enjoying it. I bought a couple of things from Dennis that were part of an estate and just picked them up recently. That's what we're talking about.
So we're going to have a traditional Thanksgiving dinner for Maggiano's.
Okay. Just you, or you haven't any family in?
No, they have a takeout package, so we're picking it up at 2:00 on Thanksgiving, and no cooking, just eat.
That's a good place, though.
Yeah, that's good. Here at the retirement community, we're getting the dinner delivered to our door because that's the COVID protocol, has been since April, I guess. And what little bit of communal dining they had opened up is now closed down again. And we've had really a spike here also, as we have out in the county. So they're clamping down again. It's going to be a different Thanksgiving, just me and Mary Lee. I have set up a Zoom meeting with the family later on in the day, though. And I guess Zoom has gone back to the 40 minutes, except that I got an email today that on Thanksgiving they're waiving that. So.
Well, I hope they increase their servers because otherwise they're going to run into a problem. It's going to be heavily used, and if you extend the time, that translates into a need for more server power.
Yeah, but I could remember Bell Telephone. You try to make a long distance call on a holiday, can't even get a long distance line.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly my point. It's very analogous to the phone system.
Well, I wonder how much usage there'll be because normally you have a lot of schools and businesses that are using Zoom that most likely won't be using it on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, that possibly their traffic would be down because of business and schools and all that are not using it.
Yeah, I don't know whether A or B is bigger. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
which
I
way it
don't
goes.
either.
Yeah, but then again, in Trenton, we had a party line. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but you pick up the phone and somebody else is talking.
Yeah, sure.
I remember the party lines.
Sure, we had one of those too.
Dennis, when I grew up, I had a 4-party line.
Yeah, well, you had
I
to
remember
listen
that.
for your ring, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember that. That was when you could get any color you wanted telephone, as long as it was black. Right.
And as long as you rented it from the post office, or from the,
Right.
from
Is this
AT&T
showing you-
Hotel.
My mother-in-law had a rotary phone on the wall up until about 5 years ago. They probably had one special circuit in the local office just to decode her clicks.
I think you can get an app for the iPhone now that has a rotary dialer on it.
Really?
It doesn't have the feel though, right? You don't get that
Mhm.
goes around.
Did
I
anybody
had
ever?
a parakeet once. We kept it right by the rotary telephone, which was wall mounted. And the parakeet learned the sound associated with a dialing telephone. We didn't realize it at the time, and my wife kept hollering at my son, it turns out unjustifiably, for playing with the telephone when in fact he wasn't. He kept getting in trouble. And finally, we happened to be sitting around the dinner table, and all of a sudden we heard the dialing sound from the telephone, and it was coming from the bird cage. But it was the exact sound of the telephone dialing, to include the cadence of different numbers.
Wow.
Amazing.
Smart parakeet.
So could you get free phone calls out of that? You could hold the receiver up to the bird.
It was an auto dialer.
There was a guy who learned how to do that with touch tone phones. I think it was a kid who was blind and he learned how to make the sounds so he could do long distance calling.
Wow.
He was popular on his college campus. If anybody needed to make a long distance call, they'd bring him over and he'd just into the phone and then it would connect the long distance call.
On the old 3.6 repeater, which is now a MARC repeater in Darby, we built a homebrew touch-tone dialer, and there was a club member who could actually, when he was speaking, he would bring up the dial tone. In fact, that was the biggest reason I think repeaters really hit it big, was that we all had phones in our car. See, nobody remembers that. I remember that for about the biggest reason to have a repeater was to have auto patch.
Yeah, sure. That was a very popular thing to do.
I don't know how many repeaters even have auto patch anymore. When I lived in Canada, they had a system that did, but there were lots of areas where there was no phone service. So that was a useful thing to have.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't use it for commercial calls, but you could call home, have home order a pizza. You could call back and find out what time it's ready while on the auto patch. That was legal.
Well, actually, when I was working in Center City, and my now ex-wife Carol, who a lot of you know and or remember, since, for instance, Al was at our wedding, I would, as I was on the train passing Bryn Mawr Hospital, call and tell her, you know, what time I expected to be in the Radnor station. And it was such a routine that it routinely, for instance, Bob Haas, you know, I would ID, you know, WQ3Z, he would say, okay, everybody stand by, let Ned call Carol. And there were a couple of times where you know, she gets into a conversation with whoever's on the repeater. I'm getting off saying, prior interrupt, could somebody let Carol secure? So.
I was telling Jeremy, earlier when we first got on here that here in the retirement community, a ham has recently moved in, and we've been chatting. He's trying to figure out how to build an invisible antenna, and he lives in a single house, so he has an attic, and he told me today that he's got a 40-foot wire that he's feeding end fed through a 9-to-1 un, and he's only running 10 watts into it, but he is having contacts on 40 meters, so he's making some progress. And I told him, well, go hang a wire outside like I did. And he said, did you get permission? And I said, no, I didn't, because it would be denied if I asked, I think.
It's easier to get forgiveness than permission.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes easier to not get caught.
Yeah, right, right.
Or just
Well,
don't
I've lived here long enough and had this wire up long enough that probably the management doesn't know it's there, but the maintenance guys know it's there. And I do take it down when we go away, because it's a pretty poor excuse for an antenna, but it gets me on the air. It's low enough on the far end that I can wrap the attachment around a tree limb and reach it, and it's high enough. It's about, I would say, 15 feet at the most high on the feed end. So you know how low an antenna it is. But and it's 71 feet long, which is a good length for end feeding a wire on multiple bands. So I'm rather limited. And when I get on the repeaters, it's on an antenna that's indoors, but it's a Comet that's about eight feet tall, and I have it sticking up through a hole in the ceiling into the attic above the apartment. I didn't ask for permission to do that either.
Put the hole in the ceiling.
Gee, I don't know, Dennis. It was just there.
Some of you moved in and there was a hole there, so you put this rod up there to plug the hole.
Right.
Right. That's it. And then after I started living in this apartment, I realized how many times those maintenance guys go up in that attic for various things. And but it's so far nobody said anything about what's sticking through the hole in there.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about my setup here. I've got an indoor antenna at least for VHF. So maybe I'll give a couple of pieces of advice, some various antenna ideas.
Okay, there you go.
Especially for HTs, because I know a lot of folks are having trouble getting into the nets. So you can do various sorts of telescoping antennas and
Yeah.
base antennas.
Well, this Comet is made for outdoors, and it's a 6-meter, 2-meter, 440 antenna. I'm not sure it works very well on 6, because I have a hard time getting into the Montgomery County. Well, actually, it's the Para 6-meter machine, which I guess is over in Valley Forge.
Well, if it's 8 feet, then it's probably more than a quarter wave. It's probably like a half wave, which means it's probably reasonably ground independent.
It should be. And of course, I'm ground independent. I'm on the 2nd floor here.
Yeah.
My only ground for the radios is the electrical safety ground in the wall outlet. That's all I have.
Now go to Home Depot and get a flower pot and then stick a ground rod in it.
Yeah, there you go. I have enough room outside this window is a balcony, a little deck, and it's about 12 feet long and maybe 6 feet wide. The 12 feet is just about big enough to hang a 6-meter dipole in there. So I built one recently, and I'm listening on 6 to see if I hear any band openings.
How close are you to Reading, Bob?
You mean now?
Yeah, because there's a Reading 6-meter repeater, FM repeater.
I haven't researched. I should. I have a repeater directory here. I should look it up and see if I can get into some other 6-meter repeaters. I have a hard time with that Para machine,
Yeah.
but it may be because of the hill between me and Valley Forge.
I think there's a machine in Almont or Quakertown, which you should be able to get
I
into.
might be able to hit that too. Yeah.
The Reading one is, I think it's Earlville or something like that. It's in Berks County.
Okay.
I can hit it. I've got the same antenna, the CG18 by comment, Bob. I can hit the Reading FM repeater from here.
You can. Okay. I haven't played lately. I haven't played with 6 meters much at all, except to check into the county net on Thursday nights.
Well, you should have been like me in Trenton, where the Trentonians would swing their antenna and try to copy New York television stations on on channel 2, which is right above the 6-meter band.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't work anymore because channel 2 is now like channel 32 or something like that in RF.
Nothing works the same anymore.
Yeah. And my parents are having some issues with their TVs because they have a couple over-the-air sets, and they've had to keep rescanning all the channels because they're doing this Spectrum repack.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of white space, and they're trying to reform it.
Yeah. Yeah, so now they've basically taken every channel above 36, and they're selling those off, I guess, to police departments and cell companies to use for other uses. But I guess the selectivity of receivers has gotten better now that they don't need to keep the channels separated. Because it used to be the UHF channels had to be, I think, at least 6 channels apart.
Well, of course, what really helps that is it's all digital, even over the air.
Yeah.
No more this analog junk.
And you don't hear much about TVI anymore either.
Nobody's on 6.
That's right.
That used to be quite the thing. I think 6 meters was the premier band in the 60s and 70s, actually. 2 meters was backwater. 440, who cares?
Well, just designing equipment there was hard enough.
No, you just went up to Saddle River, New Jersey, to Gregory Electronics, and bought all these old taxi cab transmitters, junk in the trunk. That was for 6 meters anyway.
Well, based on the high quality taxi cab transmitters, you're probably on every band when you transmit on one of those.
Well, they were a real joke. They had dynamotors, they had vacuum tube finals and things like that. Those things ran about 50 watts.
I once had a 6-meter rig in the car that ran about, I think it was 50 or 60 watts. And it was an old police radio from Montgomery County. And the county gave us a whole bunch of these Motorola radios that had the head up in the cab and the separate microphone, and then the box was in the trunk. And it was a big, heavy box. It was all solid state though, so it connected to 12 volts. And I had a whip on the back fender, and
well, the whips were neat, especially when you went into a parking garage.
I didn't catch.
I said the 6-meter whips were great, especially when you went into a parking garage.
Oh yeah.
That's the tester to make sure the clearance is what they say it is.
Right.
When you hear it twang off each of the beams.
Well, I guess we ought to get things going here.
All right, I'll start up the recording.
All right, good evening and welcome to the MARC Radio Club November meeting. I'm Rich Russo, KB3BZL president. We can do our roll call. I think I have most of the people who are here, but we'll start with ABCD, last letter.
If you're going to do it that way, N3EA, Al from Florida. Good evening, everybody.
FGHI,
This is Lou, WX3I.
JKLM,
KC3 IGM, Ted.
NOPQ,
Hey, this is Alan, AB3FM.
This is Jeremy, N2ZLQ.
Chuck, KB3RLP in Westchester.
RST,
Okay, 3DS, Dennis.
UVW, XYZ.
W3JNF. Jim, you were going too fast for me.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'll slow it down.
No.
Okay.
Whiskey Quebec 3 Zulu, WQ3Z, and over to my colleague Bob.
Anyone else we're missing?
I was trying to
Yeah,
hit-
I must have missed the Q. This is Brian, Alpha 3, Bravo Kilo.
All righty. Treasurer's report, Lou.
Okay, right now in the bank, we have $15,224.16. There's a couple of checks pending that I have to deposit, but that's a pretty close number right there. As far as our membership, we basically finished 2020 with 73 members. We now have 3 people who have re-upped for 2021. So basically I'm at the point where I'll take 2021 dues if anybody wants to send it to the PO box. So,
and what is that PO box?
PO Box 557, Eagleville, Pennsylvania 19408. It's on the website.
And what are the dues?
$20.
No, for you, 40, Ed.
All righty. Thank you. Secretary's report.
Good evening. I really don't have anything to report tonight, so we can move on.
Okay. Membership report from our membership committee.
Membership report, same. Nothing to report.
Yeah, we got to break out of this cycle here. All right. I don't see Bob, so we don't have a public service. Ted, public relations, anything to report?
No, nothing to report. It's one of those years, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Tech services, Dennis.
No, nothing to report.
All right. Vice President Jeremy.
Yeah, all right. So I've got a couple, actually Bob just joined in, so maybe he'll go right after me. All right, so as far as things are going, the nets are going pretty well. We're doing Wednesdays and Sundays every night. We're typically getting 10 to 15 check-ins. A couple of times we've hit the 20 mark. So tonight's topic will be Show Your Shack and Homebrew Night. So if you're interested in giving a little presentation, just send a little message in the chat and I'll start queuing people up. So we'll get that started. All right, did you want me to announce the elections now or do you want to let Bob go first with the...
Sorry about that. Yeah, Bob, let's take the report. Where are you there? Oh, there you are. Good evening, Bob. Anything to report for public service?
No, nothing to report. Pretty much all of our events are canceled for 2020, and we're going to, I guess, look forward to 2021. That's about all we can do.
All righty. I guess the clipboards are getting moldy.
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna need a little bit of cleaning up, I guess, before we get them back in service.
Okay, thank you. Back to Jeremy. You have a few things to go over?
Yeah. Okay. So elections. I know that's the last word everybody wants to hear right now, but we just finished. Hold on a minute. Let me make sure I am not coming up here. All right. So elections were held. We collected a total of 15 ballots, and the following officers were elected to terms in 2020. So for president, Jeremy Carlo, N2 ZLQ. For vice president, Rich Russo, KB3VZL. For secretary, Jim Foster, W3JNF. For treasurer, Lou Rue, WX3I. Technical services, Dennis Salage, K3DS. For public service, Bob Palin, N3JIZ. Membership services, Jim Foster, W3JNF. Public relations, Ted Zarcone, KC3IGM. For programs, Jeremy Carlo, N2ZLQ. And for member at large for 2021 to 2022, Doug Wilkins, NE3U. Now, joining them on the board, we have a few more who weren't up for election. We have Jim Smith, who's the other member at large, who's continuing for the second year of his term. He's K3RTU. And we have our two trustees. Our trustee for WB3JOE is Dennis Salage, K3DS. And our trustee for W3NWA is Brian Kelly, AA3BK. So thank you to everyone who ran. Thank you to everyone who served. And congratulations / condolences to all of our new officers who will be incoming next year. All right. So Rich, did you have any other business?
Has the vote been certified?
We're still waiting on the electrical college.
I demand a recount.
All right, anything else to report for us, Jeremy?
That's all I have besides programs.
Okay. Obviously, we're not gathering for a food get-together for December, and that's unfortunate. So I guess our next meeting will be January, and I hope everybody has a nice Thanksgiving and happy holidays. And I know things are going to be different. I, for one, have not taken my red suit out of the cleaner bag, and I am not contemplating doing it, unfortunately, this year.
Question?
But, yes.
From Ned, WQ3Z. Well, would we want to try and do a lunchtime thing the Saturday that we would have had? We can all, get together on Zoom and, have a sandwich or something?
What do you think, people?
Let's not all jump at once. Okay, I'll withdraw the suggestion.
You don't have to withdraw it. You're entitled to a suggestion. I have you up here twice on the screen, Ned. Okay. Jeremy, I don't know how many offers you have for presentation tonight, but you want to start with the first one?
Okay. Yeah, we have two so far. Dennis, K3DS. Rich said he'll do a demo. I've got a demo. So anyone else who wants to do anything, just send me a message in the chat and I will get you in the queue. All right, as far as January goes, we're going to have a good speaker. We're going to have Ed Fong from California joining us by the magic of Zoom. So he's going to talk about some of his antenna projects that he's working on. So hopefully that will be a good meeting. And I'll be working on scheduling the next couple of months over the next few weeks now that work is going to be settling down after next week or so. Last couple of months have just kind of flown right by for me. It's been a blur. Okay, so let's see. To get started with our programs, let's see. First up, we'll have Dennis, K3DS, has a little show and tell.
Okay. Do I have the screen, Jeremy?
Let's see. Yeah, I think you're on it now.
Okay, let me zoom back a little bit here. Well, this being the shack, it's my third HF transceiver in 40 years. Now a Kenwood TS590SG. Great receiver, really performs well. I replaced Kenwood TS2000. We have a 3-element Mosley tri-bander in the backyard and an Alpha Delta 160, 80, and 40 inverted V hanging off the tower. Got more HTs than I know what to do with, actually. It's across the board. That's Kenwood analog FM, and we have B-Star, and then we have Yaesu Fusion, and then over here we have DMR, some other HTs, and all kinds of other stuff. And this is also my workbench. So I get half the table with the workbench. I've got a oscilloscope back there, and some function generators, meter and things like that. I got all the tools, and, souvenirs, all kinds of books on the shelf, and got a very nice unit that I picked up on eBay, which is a regular Vibraplex, not an iambic key. With the plastic, I've just had that under plastic because I can't really run it. So that's just a demo piece. But I've got the same Vibraplex iambic key that Bob just picked up from our state sale. So that's basically the shack. On the roof, we've got disco antenna. We've got vertical for 220 and 440, and then we've got the CG 18 like Bob's got for 6 meters, 2 meters and 440. So that's the situation here. And I wish I could take over more space, but my wife gives me a hard time when I take up anything at all. Well, what I got running on the screen here is Uno from SDR Play, which is a really nice piece. It's a pan adapter, and additional digital filtering, and all that. That really helps a lot. Even on analog voice, quite honestly, it's a really good filtering function compared to the Kenwood does. So they're kind of a nice little piece. We also I got 2 monitors here. We also run Ham Radio Deluxe for rate control, and this can also be rate controlled too. Uno has rate control possibilities also too. So kind of neat that way. And that's basically it.
All right. Thanks, Dennis. You can see got quite a bit of stuff there. All right. So next up on our list, we have Rich.
Okay. Good evening. I got my Kenwood TS480. I have a key that I built a while ago. The next item here is a MFJ tuner and my power supply and a homebrew power distribution box. I can switch from the power supply over to a battery supply. Over here, I've got my Kenwood 2 meter with an AB switch for audio, speaker, or headphone. My microphones use a magnet to keep them up. I have a MFJ SWR meter, watt meter, weather radio, and I've got a Kenwood 2 meter, a Woshen 2 meter 220, and an ICOM 440. I've got my Kenwood speaker, which is set for communications for voice, so it blocks out upper and lower frequencies. And I picked up, or I was actually given 2 Motorola's that I use for the other radios. On my computer, I also have a homebrew AV switch here for the computer. And obviously the computer's in front of me. And that's pretty much it. I can't get over to my homebrew grounding equipment, but I've got a bus bar behind the monitor where everything grounds off to the water pipe. The antenna I have outside, which is my flagpole, because I live in an HOA, is a Comet CHA 250. I had a nylon line running up it for the flag, but I took the nylon line down for the winter. Up in my attic, I have a homebrew 2-meter dipole, and I also have a another 5/8 wave 2-meter 440 antenna I just picked up, and that's got to be set in and hooked up. So that's my shack. Took a while to collect it, and I have fun. Got my computer in front of me. I'm down in the basement, but you got to do what you got to do when you downsize. So that's it.
All right. Thanks, Rich. Actually, I have two questions for you. Number one, the magnetic mount for the speaker. I mean, does that affect the microphone at all?
No, you know the little tags they have on the back of ID badges?
Yeah.
That's what I used. I put the adhesive on it and I stuck the magnets on the wood, and then most of the microphones have a metal clip on the back of some sort, and I've never had a problem with it. It's nice because it keeps it out of the way and you're able to grab it quickly.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the magnetic field changes the behavior of the, if it's a microphone that has a magnet inside.
No, I think they're all electrics. So
yeah,
unless it's a desktop mic, which I do have a couple. I have a Kenwood, that's a dynamic, and then I have an static that I rebuilt, and I put my own cartridge in that because it was trashed. And I have a Turner that I rebuilt. And again, that's got a condenser mic in it. So yeah, I haven't run into any problems. My dipole's been acting up. My SWR is a little high, so I don't know what's going on with that, but I got to get up to the attic and tweak it. But, you know, keeps me out of trouble sometimes.
And my other question was the wooden call sign plaque that you have there. Did you make that yourself?
No, that was a gift.
Okay.
Guy on the internet, he makes them. They're very reasonable, and that was a gift from somebody.
Yeah, the work looked really nice on that.
Yes, very nice. Also, I have my official mug, which was a birthday present a couple of years ago.
All right, thanks, Rich. Any other questions for Rich? All right, next up we have Bob, W3ZQN.
Okay, I'll try and figure out how to do this. I'm not experienced with Zoom on my phone, but I did dial in with my phone so I could see myself and see what the computer is showing from the computer camera. So hopefully, yeah, I guess that's going to work fairly well. I have a den here that is my domain, and it includes all of my business and financial files and my clothing and my dresser, and I have a walk-in closet here that is big enough to have all my clothes as well as a whole bunch of electronic parts that I saved. And so this is where I hang out a lot of the time. As I mentioned earlier, I do have a workshop over here. Again, rather small, but let's see. But and it's kind of a mess right now too. But anyway, but the shack is here, and everything's on a rather small computer table that I got for nothing a few years ago. It's metal, and I've added a tabletop to it. It gives me a lot of space here. Radios then are in front of me. The big radio is a 10-Tech Omni 7. It's looking at 50.125 right now, and it's kind of just sits there and monitors that. The other HF radio that I have here is a fairly new, if you've heard of them, a Zygu G90. It's an all-band HF radio, runs a maximum of 20 watts, and it's really for the price, it's a beautiful radio. It has very small readout, but very clear readout. And right now it's my go-to HF radio when I want to get on HF. Above that is the Yaesu quad band radio that I normally use for nets and 6-meter FM and 440. It operates 10, 6, 2, and 440 FM. I don't use it on 10. I haven't, at least for a long time. Above that is, I'm looking to see where, this is a little Elecraft K1 that I did build from a kit. And I've used that portable. I've had it up in the mountains. Up in the mountains, I do have a full 100-watt station that actually has a better antenna than down here. And well, what else? Over here, I hardly ever use it, is a 220 rig that I built a 220 J-pole out of an old pair of rabbit ears, and that is sitting on the filing cabinet behind me indoors. But I can raise several 220 repeaters on it if they're still there. I haven't turned it on in quite a while. And even below that is a CB radio. Again, rarely used, but I can load up that onto my HF wire that's out the window. Not much more. There is an ICOM D-Star rig that's here that I used to check into Montgomery County on Thursday nights, and the rest of that radio is up above. And underneath is a 30 ampere hour battery that's under the table that I use for possibly for emergency communications. I even have a little 10 ampere hour battery up here that I've used for portable with the Zygu radio and also with the Elecraft, and had some fun with that up in the mountains. I guess that's about it. Oh, I was telling Dennis, I just bought there's the paddle. I have a little hand key on top of it that I rarely use a hand key, but I'm using the paddle that was an estate item from Dennis, and it's the same paddle that Dennis has with the plexiglass cover. And then, although I rarely use it, down in the right here is an MFJ tuner that I can use, but I don't normally need it. The Zygu has an excellent antenna tuner built in. and it'll load onto just about anything you put on it. And so I haven't been using the antenna, and my Omni 7 also has a antenna tuner. For my wire, I have a 71-foot wire out to a tree with an average height of about 10 feet, I guess, above the ground. And that's my HF antenna. I do have a 9-to-1 balun that I could switch in if I need to, but the 71-foot, from research on the internet, is one of the good lengths if you're going to in-feed an length to use that will fairly easily match on most of the HF bands except 160. And I have used it on all of those bands. And I think I've even tried to load it on 160, but I'm probably just pumping everything into the ground there. So I don't use the tuner much, but it's there and I can switch it in if I need to. It normally sits there with just through without any tuning. I do use the meter in the tuner, although it's not correct for SWR since the SWR is set by the radio. It does give me an indication that yes, RF is going out and I am on the air. That's about it. I do have on the 220 rig, I do have an SWR bridge. On the UHF radio, I do have an SWR bridge. And I didn't show you over on the right-hand side, I have a bunch of coax switches which switch these various radios into the HF antenna or the Comet antenna, or now I have a 6-meter dipole outside that I'm monitoring 6 meters with. So I guess that's about it. So I'll turn it back for any questions or comments or why did you ever do something like that question. Go ahead, Jeremy.
All right, thanks, Bob. Any questions for Bob? Well, here's one. Now, given that you're divided between 2 locations, have you given any thought to doing remote operation? If your station upstate has more capability?
No serious operation, Jeremy, or no serious consideration, Jeremy. I find myself behind the times when it comes to computers. And I didn't point it out here, but I do have a signal link here that I have used in the past with the FL Digi program with county operations and sending digital messages back and forth to the county. When I went to Windows 10, suddenly I couldn't get the signal link to work correctly with my computer, my laptop. And my laptop would keep keying the radio through the signal link for no apparent reason. So even lately, I've used FL Digi with audio coupling, which works well if you use the right mode. And lately, in fact, just earlier this week, I thought, I got to get that thing working again. So I went back to the Signal Link website, got all the Windows 10 stuff. And when I tried to configure the Signal Link, when I tried to configure the FL Digi, I can't do it. I can't bring up the menus to set my audio sound card settings and all. And so I gotta get some help on that. The help in FL Digi doesn't seem to help. But anyway, I'm just not too computer literate, and that's probably my whole problem. So there you go.
Let me ask this. I had a similar problem with Signal Link, and it turned out that I was running the power through a bridge and not through directly off the computer. And apparently, even though the bridge was powered, it wasn't getting enough power into the Signal Link to complete the circuit. So you might want to look at that.
Yeah, good comment. And I do have a USB multiplier here, but I don't use that. I plug the signal link right into the USB port on the laptop.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
I found that out.
Yeah. I downloaded the latest FL Digi, and it's distinctly different than the previous version I had used before in terms of these menus. And I'm really puzzled why I can't bring up the settings for sound card and all, but it just doesn't respond. I've reloaded it a couple times and it still doesn't. And the help assumes you can do that. So, so anyway, some of the guys at Montgomery County may be able to help me because a lot of them are pretty good at FL Digi.
Chester County crowd's pretty good too.
Yeah, yeah. And I could get on some of these digital nets that are around, but I haven't.
Too bad Delaware County is dead in the water.
What's that?
Too bad Delaware County ARES is dead in the water.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, Montgomery County's very active yet, and they're big in mesh networks. I think you know about the mesh, Dennis, and they're big with that right now. That's another of their activities. But they use FL Digi a lot, and they did for their SET a couple weekends ago. And I participated, but it was with audio coupling, which
I had been working with Chester County.
Yeah. Okay.
K3TU is going to have a mesh node if I can ever get back to the campus.
Okay. Yeah, I know you were working on that.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for Bob? All right, well, that brings me to the bottom of the lineup. If there's anyone else who wants to present anything or talk about anything, just leave a message in the chat. Because in the meantime, I have a couple things that I wanted to talk about. A little bit of a show and tell, and then I'll show my station. Yeah, unfortunately, because I'm running this thing, I'm connected to Ethernet, so I can't move the computer around very much. So I'm going to have to try to do it from over here. So let me hold on a second. Let me bring up the spotlight here. That way I'm up. All right, so first comment is people checking into nets or sometimes having some trouble getting in. So when you buy an HT, you get an antenna that's sort of like that. So I would suggest step number one is size matters when it comes to antennas. This is the Diamond SRH77CA. That's kind of the gold standard of antennas. It's it's not quite 19 inches. They shortened it a little bit, about 15 inches. That will get you in pretty well. Another thing you can do is one of these telescoping antennas. This is a Nagoya. So the nice thing about that, folds down fairly small, but of course it isn't flexible. So if you bend that, it's permanently bent. Whereas this one, you can basically go in a circle and that's pretty good. So that will help get you a better signal, but even that's not going to help you all the way. A lot of times just the antennas moving around will be a problem. So you get one of these mobile antennas. This is one that's by Diamond. There's MFJ makes a fairly similar one. It's about 19 or 20 inches long. Of course, this is designed, it sits on the roof of your car or on the trunk of your car. Has a fairly long, maybe about a 15-foot cable attached to this. Of course, this is only half of an antenna, right? If that's a dipole, that's one side of the dipole. There's another side there. And the way you have to make the other side is with a metal plane. So if you're using an indoor antenna, which is what I'm limited to, do something like that. Get a pizza pan, maybe something a little bigger than this. There's your ground plane. Alternately, get a piece of metal flashing. I had two pieces that I taped together. So that could be your ground plane. Just stick the antenna right on top of that, and maybe put a little magnet underneath.
Plus, you can use that for sunbathing too.
Too, yeah. I can get myself a nice fluorescent tan here. So those are some good things to do.
Just don't get an RF burn.
Yeah. So now these mobile antennas, they do make some that have SMA connectors on the end. This has a PL259. So if you do have that, then you just need to get an adapter that goes from PL259 to SMA. I would recommend spending a couple bucks more and getting a cable one. They do make the ones that are just a straight through metal, but that's going to put a lot of strain on your antenna connector and possibly break it. So these cables are the way to go. And I'd say if you do this, you put something like this in one of your windows operating indoors, you will get a much better signal like night and day into the repeater. Even if you're only using 4 or 5 watts, you will get a much better signal because this is bigger antenna and it's more stable, right? You're not moving it around and doing stuff with it. You're also not holding it right next to your head, which means that half the signal's being absorbed by you. So you'll do much better if you can get that in a window. And again, there's not much the HOAs can do about that. If you have this just sitting in a window or put it out on a balcony, I guess you could also clip this onto a balcony. If it's metal, just put it onto the railing, put it out there, especially if you can get out onto the side facing towards the repeater, you'll get a much better signal out there. All right, so let's say I wanted to show a couple of pictures I took. So let's go back here. So this is my mobile setup. This is actually my new car. I just got it this summer. So I have my VHF antenna on the right-hand side, and then I have an HF antenna on the left side. That's basically a dummy load, that little 3-foot MFJ ham stick. I don't get much of a signal out of that, but I do have the full size. I just don't leave those on all the time. That's a side view, shows a little more clearly. So this is a little bit unconventional. I do park a lot in garages, so I want to make sure I don't hit anything. So I wanted to make sure those antennas didn't go above 7 feet. Mounting onto the roof would have meant that I'm above 7 feet and I'm going to clang off of everything. You know, every time I go to McDonald's, I'll leave a little bit of my antenna behind. I didn't want to do that. I don't have a back since this is an SUV. On my old car, I had them mounted on the trunk. So I just mounted these on the hood. So I have a little NMO mount over here. That's a Diamond, a Larson 270. It's kind of the standard one. And then a little MFJ ham stick on that side with a 3/8 24. Got a couple adapters so I can do a lot of different things with antennas on that. So this is what it looks like on the inside. I've got the FT 7900. The body of the radio is underneath the seat. This is just the head here. Brand new car. I didn't feel like drilling through the dashboard, but I have these little command strips holding the wires, and then those just go down. I have the hand mic attached there. I found a little gap in the dashboard, so I was able to stick the mic holder into there. I also have a hands-free set that I bought on eBay, so that's how that works. I would say it's almost hands-free because I still have to hold the thing in my hand, but it's a long enough cable that I can keep my hand on the wheel. I can key up, and then I've got a little microphone that I have attached to the what do you call those things? That's the oh crap bar that you have there to hold on to when you go around a turn. So I just have a little lapel mic stuck to there, so I can basically operate hands-free. There's my HF transceiver. Normally I don't leave that out when the car is parked, but it's easy enough. Just a little cell phone mount. I can take that on and off, hide it under the seat when I'm not around. And that's that, and that connects to the antenna on the outside. This is my indoor station. Not much, I think, compared to some of the other stations we saw. There wasn't too much there. Got the FT 8900. That's where I operate the net. Have a little CB radio up there. Don't use it very much, but it is useful to have. And if I go on a long trip in the car, I can always take the CB radio with me. Just have that. I can listen to the truckers. To the left here, I have a little shortwave radio. And what I have next to that is a little AM loop antenna. So it's a passive loop. It just has a little LC tuned circuit there. So if you want to do any AM radio DXing, that's how you do it. It doesn't have to connect. It just works by proximity. So I just put that right near the window, stick the shortwave radio. So the shortwave radio has its bar antenna right up here. So I just try to get that inside the loop. And then I just tune this little capacitor here to peak up the noise. And you'll find all sorts of DX stations will pop out late at night. So that's basically the station. And let's see if I can do a little real-time demo. Let's see what I can do here. I have to be careful not to rip my cord out. So you can see over here, this is my classroom against this wall here. So that's where I teach all of my classes. And there is the Radio Shack. So as far as antennas go, my main antenna is right up here. I don't know if you can see it too well. That's an Arrow J pole. Does 2 meters and 440, so that connects to the FT8900. Again, if you're in an antenna restricted situation, one of these antennas, this is about 5 feet tall. So you do need kind of a tall window in order to fit it, but that just goes right in the window. And if I need to take it down, it's just a little C-clamp holding it in place. So I can take that right down. So that's basically how I'm operating. Can't do very much HF inside the apartment, just very, very high noise situation. Everybody's got wireless devices and TVs and LED lamps and everything else. It's just S9 plus up and down the bands. About the only thing I can do is I can drop a wire out the window, and I am up on the 7th floor, so that helps me. But of course, if I drop a wire, then I have to worry about neighbors calling it in. Why is there a wire hanging in front of my window? So I do that sparingly, and maybe only at night. I can just fish the wire out there, do a little operating, and then fish the wire back. And it works pretty well with the KX2 because that's only 10 watts. So I don't have to worry too much about RF exposure. So that's basically my station. Don't have too much in the way of equipment. I guess I have a bunch of handhelds, but those are back in the bedroom. I have them all sitting in their chargers, ready to go. So that's my station. Any questions?
Not a question, Jeremy, but can I make a comment? You mentioned the next meeting with Ed Fong.
Yeah.
Montgomery County had him, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months ago, a year ago, also via virtually. But he markets. He has a business, and he markets a J-pole antenna for 2 meters and 440. And you say, well, what's new about that? It's a twin lead J-pole, and for those of us that have been around a long time, such antennas have been around a long time. But he has modified the twin lead J-pole in such a way that it is much better on 440 than your typical 2 meter J-pole is when you're trying. And he goes through, I don't know what he'll do with MARC, but with us in Montgomery County, he went through the theory of what's behind this. And he actually has his grad students build these things, and he tests them out, and he'll sell you one if you're interested.
Yeah,
I have one hanging by the window behind me that I typically use with a little Yaesu handheld to check into the 440 fusion and 440 analog nets that Montgomery County has on Thursday nights. And that antenna works quite well, and you can wrap it up and almost put it in your pocket. It's very interesting. He's an interesting guy, and I would recommend. I'll try and tune in that night, but I would recommend him. He's very interesting to listen to.
Yeah, he is going to be talking about the J-poles, so he'll probably get into that.
Yeah, probably will.
Fun. Yeah, so that's what we call a roll-up J-pole.
Yeah. I think he even has one that is supposed to work on 220 as well as 2 meters and 440. I don't remember that one too well.
It must need a third element to do that then.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he said about that, but
yeah, I've been happy with the J-pole here. I think they don't have quite as much gain as some of the stacked, the collinear type, but it does work pretty well.
Yeah, they work. I think they work pretty well.
Yeah, and it was fairly inexpensive, and it's pretty rugged too. I think I could beat off a burglar with it if I needed to.
Yeah.
All right. So does anyone have any questions, or does anyone else have anything they want to present?
Yeah, Jeremy.
Who's that?
That's Chuck.
Hey, Chuck.
Well, inquiring minds want to know, ever since we've been doing Zoom calls, I've noticed that you have a humongous telescope in the back there. At first, I thought it was a water heater, then I realized, now I know you're an astronomy buff and all that. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I've always wanted to know.
Actually, this isn't even my telescope. The story of this, I have one very much like this, but it's got a fancier paint job on it, and I keep it down in the basement. This one actually belongs to my astronomy club, and it's actually being auctioned right now. So the way this happened was last fall, this was actually used to be in our rental program for the club, and they decided we're not going to rent them anymore. So somebody had it in his garage and was downsizing. So they said, "Oh, do you mind holding on to this just for a month or two? Because we're gonna have an auction in the spring." I said, "Oh, okay, I'll hang on to it. I got a little space in the living room. If it's just a couple of weeks, I can hang on to it." Then, of course, COVID hits, everything gets canceled, and 11 months later, it's still sitting here. But we're doing an online auction now. But in the meantime, it's a good place to hang all of my masks to air them out from one day to the next.
I like the custom lens cover.
Oh yeah, CVS, finest quality. Yeah. So I took it, I did some work on it. It was pretty dusty, so I had to do some cleaning and collimate the optics. Yeah, there it is.
What are the specs on it?
It's a 10-inch f5.6. Actually, if you're interested, it's up for auction right now. If you go to dvaa.org, there should be a link for the auction. You can probably find it there. I'm not sure what the latest, I think we're trying to sell it for about $300. I think it's a pretty reasonable price on that. I mean, it's a big scope. It's heavy to move around, and you kind of need a van or an SUV to transport it. Because I was able to fit it in my Toyota, but I had to basically fold the passenger seat all the way down and wedge it in through the back. So it was an interesting game of Tetris to get it to fit in the car. I mean, with my car now, it would be no problem, but the one I had then. I guess that's kind of the downside of these scopes is they have the solid tube. Yeah, my scope is a truss tube, so it has a lower part and an upper part, and then it has sort of wooden panels connecting them, so I can break the whole thing down. So the base of it is a box that's maybe about this tall to here, and then the rest of it all comes apart. In fact, I think I may have had the scope at field day. I don't remember if I brought the big one year.
Well, thank you. Because I said, I've always wondered. It's certainly an impressive looking a piece of equipment. And as I said, I agree. I love the dust cover.
Yeah. Well, maybe once this one is out, I'll put my real one up there, and that'll be even more of a conversation piece. Because it's, actually, I have a picture of it. This is old. This was, that was me in the pre-beard days. That was about 25 years ago. That's what it looks like. So it's usually interesting when I'm set up in a park or something and the police come to, do an inspection and they say, hey, are you shooting Evel Knievel out of this thing? All right. So I think that's our demos for the evening, unless anyone else has anything they want to talk about.
Well, thank you everybody for participating, and thank you for those who showed their shacks. Appreciate it. Once again, have a good holiday season and stay healthy.
Yeah, happy and safe holiday to everybody.
You too, Ned.
Okay, see you all.
Stay safe, guys.
Sure.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Be safe. 73.